We have today Wendy Byford of LegalShield, and she's done a number of things through her life that's brought her into that field itself. And she'll tell you why this is an important thing that solves a lot of problems that people have. It solves those problems before the problem even happens. Wendy, could you tell us a little bit about how you got there, a little bit about your life journey, or maybe your ups and downs a little bit, and how you ended up with LegalShield?
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. I'm delighted to be here. So I am a Canadian American. I started life in Montreal, grew up there, and then after university, started working for a Fortune 100 company in Toronto, and really kind of enjoyed the work. Didn't really enjoy the corporate environment as much. However, the company uh, decided one day that it was going to transfer me to Silicon Valley. And that was a huge change. The interesting thing was my husband, his company said, okay, fine, if you're going, then we'll transfer you as well. So we both end up in Silicon Valley. And I have to tell you that if you're in Canada, you think you understand Americans because you've got American television, American radio, American newspapers, and all kinds of stuff that you get right over the border. So you think you understand Americans. You get across the border and you understand you know nothing. Absolutely nothing about America.
Oh, my.
Because the foundation of the culture is different in America from what it is in Canada. Uh, and it took a couple of years to figure this out. This was not like a light bulb moment of one day after 3 weeks, we go, oh yeah, that's what the difference is. It took us a couple of years. And one day my husband said, I've got it. I figured this out. And it really came back to how the countries were founded. In the US, you were founded based upon individual rights. That's why people came here, to be able to practice their own religion and do what they wanted to do and set up their own businesses and all of those wonderful things. But it was all based on individual rights. In Canada, it was more a matter of what's good for society is what we're going to do, which is why in Canada, you have gun control, and in the US, you don't have so much gun control. It's just a different way of thinking. Once we figured that out, then it made life a whole lot easier because we could figure out that why people were saying what they were saying. Well, long story short, I stayed in corporate America for a while, and then in 2000, Hewlett Packard was going through its third merger, whatever, and I pretty much had it at that point. I'd had a good career. I'd been with them a long time, and I had done global business development, working with our largest and most difficult clients. You know, the guys who said, I'll buy 13 computers from you, but 5 are going to be in a war zone. You figure out how to look after them.
Oh,
That was the specialty that I had. And my team, that's what we did. We figured this stuff out. We did things that no one had ever done before. We had to come up with solutions so that we could get these large international sales. So after they had announced that they were going to merge once again, I said, I'm done. And took early retirement. And then my husband and I were living at that point in gold country, right up in the Sierra foothills. Lovely, lovely place. Had a house sitting about 1,800 feet up, looked out over a valley, just absolutely gorgeous. But we couldn't run a business there. We were on the wrong side of the mountain. So I said to my husband, we need to do something different. I want to do a business. And he said, well, okay, so we're going to move. And I said, yeah. And so we decided to move to Nevada. We were going to move. We may as well go right into another state. So we moved to Las Vegas. We had some friends there, and my husband started doing real estate. And I set up a company with a couple of friends to do formations for LLCs and corporations and some limited partnerships. And as it turns out, the company is still going. It's almost 20 years old now. We have done about 30,000 filings for about 20,000 clients. And
that's a lot. That's a lot.
it's a lot. It is. Yeah, a lot of paper under these papers. And so what we found, though, in dealing with all of these solopreneurs, largely solopreneurs, investors, small business owners, those sorts of people, was that after the entities were set up, which is what we did, we were legal document preparers, we did the setups. After all of that was done, they still needed legal support. Because they had the questions of what if, and if I do this, then what? And I've got this contract, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. And all of these things that they had. And my husband and I knew that what they were going to do was to go out to the internet and try and figure this out. Right. And of course, the internet is
Sure.
just full of conflicting information that's out of date. Half the time, people don't even know how to look up what it is that they need. And we felt really badly for them. So we started looking for something that was going to help them. And it took us a long time because we would find, this killer law firm, but it was only in 4 states. And we did our filings across the entire US. 4 states didn't really help. Well, one day I was sitting in a networking meeting and this lovely lady stood up and started talking about LegalShield and Ladies of Justice, which is the women's portion of LegalShield. And I thought, I wonder if that's what we've been looking for. So I introduced myself, asked you for more information. She said, my husband's doing a presentation in a couple of days. Why don't you come along? So I did. I listened to that presentation and another one and another one and another one. Because if I was going to recommend this to my clients, boy, you better be good. So I listened to that, did some background research, and then decided that, yep, LegalShield was the real deal. This was exactly what these people needed because it would give them big company law firm support, but for a price that they could afford. And with the flexibility that they needed, because small business owners, as you're aware, Mike, are run off their feet, right? Trying to
Yeah.
do, yeah. If you've got two hands, you've got four tasks, and you're trying to do all at the same time. And if they have a phone, then their law firm goes with them anywhere their phone is going in their back pocket. So there's just seemed to be the perfect solution. And so we started doing this. It didn't take us long to figure out that if it was good enough for our clients, it was good enough for us. So
Right.
we
Right.
started using the attorneys as well, got to know them and really appreciate the type of advice that we got. And now we are just huge fans because it can do so much good for so many people at a very reasonable price. And it's one of those disruptive technologies, if you like, that changes the way that traditional people have been getting their legal support and allowing them then to do something that makes sense for them and get the support that they need. So we're huge fans at this point.
Well, it sounds like it's quality and efficiency coming together for one thing. But what really impresses me, Wendy, is you did your due diligence. That must come from all that paperwork and having to go through things, that you had this habit of going deep and making sure, because you don't want any egg on your face referring something to someone. You definitely have your reputation at hand, especially with the type of work you're doing. You have to keep a very high trust when you were doing the paperwork with LLCs and stuff. So your mindset, I think people could see that, was it's got to be good enough, not just for people, but for us as well, that we trust it, we'll use it. And you mentioned advice. What kind of things did you ask for? Were they just around the family or wills, or just how deep did it get for you guys? Then I have another question to follow up with that, but what about that?
So when we were looking at it, we wanted to make sure that it actually would help our clients for both the business and for their personal issues, right? Because
Oh, great.
I'm a big proponent of you've got to get your mindset right in order to build a business. And if you're worried about something, if you're bringing issues from home into the office, you're not paying attention to the things that you need to be doing, right? And that can be just huge. So we wanted to make sure that if we were getting them help for the business, that they also could get help for their family life. So what we found with LegalShield is that they had not only plans for small businesses, and by small business runs up to, what's the definition, up to 5 or 7 million. So you needed to have really good, solid law firms which had the breadth and the depth to be able to handle that kind of situation. But also that these people could call in and say, hey, look, I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm a small business owner, but my kid is being bullied at school. What do I do? Or
Simple things like that. Well, that's not simple. It's disheartening to have to deal with that. I should say that, but to get
absolutely.
help, getting
Uh,
help, that's amazing. Amazing.
yeah. You want all kinds of things like I need to have my will, my power of attorney for health, finance, and my medical directive all done. Can I get that done in the small pieces of time that I have every day? They absolutely could get that done as part of their membership. Or I'm adopting somebody. and the paperwork's over my head. Can I get help with that? Or this is my all-time favorite. My cell carrier has changed the configuration on the cell towers. I can no longer get reception on my phone in my home, and I use this for my home-based business. What do I do? I've tried to break my contract. They won't let me break the contract. I can't go anywhere else until I can break my contract. What do I do? And so what they did is they gave this all to the attorneys at LegalShield. LegalShield didn't try to talk to the people they'd been talking to. They went to the legal department of the cellular provider and said, okay, guys, you are not providing service. Let's look at the contract. So they managed to get these, and this happened twice that I've heard of, and I'm sure it's happened multiple times. But for these two members, they got out of their contracts, and one of them actually got a refund on the number of months where they had not been able to get cellular service in their house. So all kinds of things happen to us where we think we can't get justice because it's too small. I'm not going to take them to court because it's going to cost me like $300 to get an attorney. And then the bill is only $285. Why would I do that? Dry cleaner has put a hole in my jacket, refuses to fix it. Most of us have gotten so used to, in this culture, of shrugging our shoulders and walking away and complaining to everybody who will listen because we can't figure out a way to get justice for the small things. And what LegalShield does is it gives you justice for all the things in life, not just the big things, but for the little things as well, because they don't care how much the monetary value is of what the issue is. If it's an issue and they think that making a call or writing a letter is going to help, they're going to do that. Right? And they're going to get you that justice. So the fellow who had the hole in the jacket, yep. The dry cleaner who refused to do anything suddenly is on the phone saying, we're happy to repair your jacket. And by the way, the next 3 dry cleanings are on us. Right?
It's amazing the amount of leverage you get when you can seriously go after it with somebody who has the leverage to help you. And that's huge. And you're so right. The small things do add up. The subscriptions that people have and can't get out of, and they don't have a good way to even unsubscribe. That happens. So many businesses are hiding to make sure that you go 2, 3, 6 months longer than you needed to, just because time is so valuable that you can only spend so much time looking up, trying to find out how to unsubscribe. That somebody else happens, and it's 6 months have gone by, and you've tried 2 or 3 times, and you're just fit to be tied. Yeah, it is huge. It is huge.
Things. I'm sorry.
I was thinking about industries like trucking. I would think that truckers would need assistance these days more so than ever.
They absolutely do, because there are times of the year when our law enforcement go after truckers and pull them over for all kinds of things to see what kinds of infractions they have. And any points that on these guys' licenses, I mean, it can be huge. You can lose your livelihood. And if you are a small company where you've got 2 or 3 drivers, this can be devastating for you. Right? If your guys are having points take up their license, they're getting reported for even the smallest things. And so LegalShield has an entire program just for these guys.
It does.
Yes.
That's good.
Just for truckers. And it really helps them to be able to fight back, if you like, to have somebody on their side to help them out. And these attorneys are experts in this area. Another area where you need to have experts is gun ownership. Right?
Yes.
A lot of gun owner programs don't give you access to the law firm until there is an event. Either you discharge your weapon, or you point your weapon at somebody, or you show your weapon to somebody, then you can get legal help. But we looked at that and said, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How do you prevent something from happening in the first place? So we allow you access to the law firm that specializes in gun ownership, so that you can ask the questions of, how do I safely transport my firearm across a state line, as an example, right? So that you don't get in trouble in the first place. All of these services are really there to make sure that people can get the support and the advice that they need before something gets out of hand. One of the best kept secrets in the whole of LegalShield is ID Shield. It's identity theft protection. And we all know that this is a huge multiple billion-dollar industry that targets Americans because people outside America think we're all rich, right? The streets are paved with gold. Come to America. So they target us for identity theft. And you may not know that someone has your information for 3 years because they take it and they season it. And only 17% of the information will ever show up on your financial reports, right? Everybody thinks, oh, if they steal my credit cards, I'll get another one. If they get into my bank account, the bank will look after that. Only 17% of any kind of identity theft will show up on your legal reports. Everything else you'll never see. I think in a networking meeting, I explained this once. A friend of mine was in her car driving from Las Vegas, where I live, to Phoenix. Now, I don't know if you've ever been on that road, but there's nothing there. Absolutely
Right.
nothing. It's desert. There's not even jackrabbits out there. There's just nothing. She gets pulled over by a police officer. Now, we're from Vegas, right? That police officer could have gotten right to his uniform from somewhere. You just never know. But she gets pulled over. She opens her window about an inch and she passes out her registration and her driver's license. And the officer takes it, goes back to his car, checks it out, comes back and says, "Step out of the vehicle, please." Now, she knows that on her LegalShield app on her phone, there's an emergency button. If you've been pulled over by an officer who threatens to question you, detain you, or take you to jail, she's already pushed that button. She's got the attorney on the line because she's in the middle of the nowhere. She's a single mother. She doesn't know what's going to happen. So the attorney's on the line. The attorney says, "I want his badge number and his name." She's not getting out of the car for anything. She takes the phone and she passes it out through the window and says, "My attorney would like to speak with you, please." The officer takes the phone, goes back to his car, talks to the attorney, comes back and says, "Ms. Kramer, your attorney would like to speak with you," passes everything back through the window, walks back to his car, gets in and drives away. So she says to the attorney, "What happened?" And the attorney says, "It's identity theft. He brought up your license information and it was your information, but somebody else's picture. And they had all of these outstanding unpaid bills, traffic tickets, and all the rest of it."
Oh my gosh, that
Right.
is really tremendous because of the picture. I just now got it because without the attorney, she could have been arrested with being the suspect instead of the victim. She could have been on the wrong side of the whole thing there. Wow.
Absolutely. He was getting ready to arrest her, take her to jail, and unfortunately have her car towed and all the rest of it because she's in the middle of nowhere, right? She's not any family or anything.
Oh, the costs just go up and up with something like that happening in your life.
Huge. And so just because she had the attorney, he basically said, "Yeah, you can take her to jail, but I'm going to have her out in 5 minutes. You know that, right?" So the officer realized that arresting her didn't make any sense because it was clearly identity theft. So when she got into Phoenix, then she got hold of ID Shield and said, "My identity's been stolen. I need you to go and rectify this." And they did. The thing about ID Shield is that we have licensed private investigators who will do whatever it takes and work as long as it takes to restore your identity to its pre-theft status. We don't just give you a list and say, "Hey, Mike, your identity's been stolen." Really sad about that. Here are all the 29 things that you can do to restore your identity.
Right,
Because
right.
we know that when you're doing that, you're not paying attention to your business. You're not paying attention to your family. You're probably not sleeping. One of our friends, his son-in-law went through this, and it was the IRS who was after him. So just think about that. This is a kid who was a W-2 employee who was being told that he had a side business online that had earned all of this money and he owed the taxes on it. He has no freaking idea where this is coming from. It took him and his father-in-law 6 months to figure this out. And they figured out his identity had been stolen by his stepfather. So this kid now has to go back to the IRS and convince the IRS to go after the stepfather and leave him alone, which is another few weeks. So in that period of time, he's not paying attention to his wife. He's not paying attention to his job. He's not eating properly. He's not sleeping properly. He's just going crazy trying to figure all this out with his father-in-law until they finally figured it out. You don't have to do that with LegalShield. You give it over to LegalShield. You let their private investigators do that. When they're finished, they'll come back and tell you that everything is fine. And if you are out of pocket because of identity fraud, we have a $3 million fund that you can dip into to be reimbursed. It's an absolutely outstanding plan that LegalShield has, and the two plans just work together so well. So we're thrilled to be able to tell people about this because it's really important that people have the resources that they need to protect their families, have peace of mind, and live the lives they want to live.
I take a deep breath because I start thinking about all these things that happen to people, and you've got some real stories there that it brings it all home. It's really super. Is there any type of thing where you can help people understand it, or maybe give them a free consultation? Do you have something special you might be able to do for people that the viewers that might have an interest in this?
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk to anybody who thinks that this would be of value to them. I do basically a 30-minute consultation, find out about you, your business, your family, what it is that will work for you. And if you have family members, because some of our members have children, grown children, they've got grandchildren, etc. If you want me to do a special presentation for you and your family, then I'm happy to do that for you.
Very good. And that can be just online, just like we're speaking now.
That's right. A Zoom call so
Sure
that we
thing.
explain everything and everybody can understand exactly what they get for the plans. And then we can decide what actually works for them.
Seems to me that you'd be awfully busy and all the time, but what do you and your husband do for fun?
All right. Cool. My husband's actually sitting here listening.
It's great. It's great.
What do we do for fun? We actually are quite busy with the two businesses that we have. And the thing that we actually like a couple of things. We love going to new restaurants and having a nice dinner out and talking to the people around us. We're fairly gregarious, so we love talking to the people around us. And
Well, that's really what restaurants are for, to see other people, at least be around other people. If you're not making conversation, you're at least doing that. Yeah, there's a lot of enjoyment in that, and just getting into a new scene. And your husband doesn't have to cook that night.
that's right. He doesn't have to cook. I don't have to cook, and we can have a lovely dinner and chat to other people. In fact, my husband is famous for going to restaurants and saying, "Hi, how are you?" and waving to everybody and won't leave the restaurant until he's thanked everybody and said goodbye. So it's an event. But so we love
Come from a small town by any chance?
I came from Montreal. My husband grew up in a very near the US border called Leamington.
Well, I think that might be where he's getting it from.
I think so. I think so. He's just a very friendly guy and just really loves talking to people.
I want to thank you for the few minutes that we've had here to go over a few things and to see what you do for a little bit of fun, to get out there and take a breather. But it's very apparent that you love what you do and you really do believe in what you do. And when you've had examples of helping people, and sometimes people just not aware, they think it's a cost rather than an asset. So a little bit of difference in mindset, you can save yourself a lot of trouble, have a lot more of a happy life if you cover that basis with the legal side of things. Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you so much, Wendy. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it very much.